Okay, I'll go first. We're basically here for a checkup, a tune-up of the car, if you like. Checking under the hood, make sure everything's working okay.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you as a couple?
10 being extremely happy, 1 being extremely miserable.
Just respond instinctively.
All right, you ready? Yeah. 8.
How often do you have sex?
I don't understand the question. Is this another 1 to 10 thing,
How about this week?
including the weekend?
Did you know there are two different films called Mr. and Mrs. Smith? I didn't until after I announced this month's Film Review Open Challenge. It's the 2005 action comedy as opposed to the 1941 Alfred Hitchcock comedy for review today. A film I have seen a few times over the years, and I'm fairly certain I saw it at the cinema 18 years ago. I'm getting old. Here's my review of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. John and Jane Smith have been married for 5 or 6 years and are having difficulties, going to counselling and acting very distant with each other at home. Unbeknownst to each other, they're both assassins working for rival firms and are both assigned to the same target, Benjamin the Tank Dans. The two cancel each other out though, and Dans gets away, but since the two of them have seen each other, they have to kill each other within 48 hours. After the first few hours, the couple are suspicious of each other, and after a tense dinner, it's confirmed that they are each other's target. Jane tries to flee, with John going after her to try and talk things out, but Jane gets away and heads back to her agency. Over the next day or so, Jane and her team strip the house of John's secret arsenal, John infiltrates Jane's headquarters but can't take the shot, and Jane sets a trap to have John killed in an elevator. Jane thinks this has succeeded and goes to dinner that night where the two got engaged, but John shows up. One bombing attempt each later, and the two head back to the house for a climactic fight. The fight ends with both holding a gun to each other's heads, but John can't pull the trigger and lowers his gun. Jane too can't do it, and the two end up reigniting their relationship. The next morning though, they're targeted by several assassins who destroy their house and pursue them on the road. They meet with Eddie, John's employer, who tells them that their respective agencies have discovered that they are married and now want them both killed as it's bad for business. The two decide to capture Benjamin Dans, as it's something both agencies want. However, after they capture and interrogate him, he reveals that he was just bait so the two would kill each other. The two escape again and hold up inside a huge department store where an entire SWAT team tries and fails to kill them. 2 years later, John and Jane are back in counselling, with things being better than ever. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is a junk food movie. It's satisfying in the moment, but once you start to think about it, it's a 2-hour film that feels both too long and not deep enough. I don't completely dislike the film. I feel the action sequences are the main reason you watch this. The fight scene choreography is top notch, and some of the cinematography matches up really well. I specifically enjoy the final fight scene where John and Jane do a Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid and fight the entire SWAT team off. The slow motion camera spinning around the couple paired with the Spanish music come together really well, and it's my favourite sequence in the film. I also quite like the free cam in the counselling sessions, making it seem like a docu-series like Parks and Rec or The Office. There aren't too many of these though, in my opinion. The one at the start and one at the end should be the only ones. Whilst I'm picking sections that shouldn't be in the film, did John need to infiltrate two different headquarters? One or the other was needed, not both. Personally, I would cut the first one and most of Jane's agency scenes, although it was interesting to see Jennifer Morrison from House MD in a minor role. Speaking of minor roles, there's a scene where Benjamin Dans is in the agency office, goes to see his boss but is told that no one sees the inside of the elevator. He's then given an envelope with his assignment, and we see the head of the agency for a split second. This is a complete waste of time and feels like a setup for a payoff that we never get. Perhaps where John and Jane get into an elevator and meet the head of the agency. Maybe this is a deleted scene after the end of the shootout, because as much as I enjoyed that sequence, we hard cut to 2 years later and the final counselling scene. It's unfulfilling and leaves so many questions. The biggest being, if both agencies wanted them dead, why are they able to go to counselling at the same place 2 years later? Did they work out a deal to go free and not be targeted anymore? The film never says. It leads me to the story, which is really underbaked. The premise of the film is a good idea, but it could have been told within maybe an hour to an hour and a half. It feels like the action sequences are thought of before the story, and that doesn't make for a good plot. The acting too is really hit and miss. Angelina Jolie is really captivating, displaying a great range of emotions and trying to hide how conflicted she is on having to kill John. I think the delivery of the killer lines, pun intended, are much better too. Brad Pitt, on the other hand, not so much. He feels like he's phoning it in, and although he's saying similar things as far as his inner conflict is concerned, he seems like he doesn't care half the time. It's odd because this is how Jolie and Pitt met and eventually got married. There's a clear chemistry between the two of them, and yet it seems like he doesn't want to be in this film. The film did well financially and so-so critically, and clearly the idea has some legs because several remakes have been attempted, but most of them too have issues with their stars. A 2007 pilot was criticised for not having chemistry between them, and a modern day remake for Amazon Prime has had Phoebe Waller-Bridge leave the project for differences between her and Donald Glover. There was a remake called Assassin Couple being created in Korea, but this too was cancelled as far as I can tell. Information on this one is sparse. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is one of those films you see on TV late at night before you go to bed and catch the end of. I don't think you should go out of your way to see it, but at the same time, it's not one to completely avoid either. The cinematography and action scenes are really fun, and there are some really cool moments. It's just a shame that overall, Mr. and Mrs. Smith feels both padded and lacking. That, however, is the issue with reviewing this type of film. Scrutinising it makes it fall apart. If you don't think too hard about it, you could enjoy this, but for me, Mr. and Mrs. Smith just misses the mark. Thank you for making it this far. If you like what you see, please feel free to give this video a like and share it around. Maybe leave a comment below about what you thought of this video. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can get notified when I upload new videos. If you'd like to support me in other ways, you can buy merchandise at bradleyj.tmail.com, where you can buy t-shirts and tote bags. Or you can become a patron at www.patreon.com/BradleyJVoices for just £1 a month. Coming up next for the Film Review Open Challenge is Rent. For now though, thank you very much for watching.